Hey everybody, Happy New Year, Happy 2024. I'm Kristen, and if you're new here, welcome to my little corner of the interwebs where I come at you every other week or so and share what I've been making. I do a lot of knitting, I do a lot of crochet, I do a lot of quilting. If you are multi-craftual, you're in a good place. Gather around, grab a cup of something because I have a lot to catch you up on because I took a little break to enjoy the holiday, went on vacation, and as I'm sure many of you did, and my throat is super groggy, it feels really good to be back, sitting down, chatting with you, talking about making all the things. So without further ado, I don't believe I have any housekeeping notes as of late, so why don't we just dive into things? 2023, towards the end of 2023, I realized that I have quite a lot of projects on the go. Lots of knitting projects, lots of crochet projects, lots of quilting projects, and not gonna lie, I felt a little overwhelmed. So overwhelmed that I just kind of shoved everything to the side and pulled something out of hibernation that I have not worked on in quite some time. You might be pleased to know that I have pulled out my Battenberg blanket. It's back, guys. It is back in business. A little backstory about this project. This is, again, the Battenberg blanket, a wonderful free crochet pattern by Sandra. And I cast this on at the, somewhere in the middle of the pandemic. I don't know. It was dark days for me, as it was for probably many of you, for many of us. Granted, I have to say I'm very lucky in a lot of respects, but there was a little dark cloud following me around. There were a lot of panic attacks. There was a lot of anxiety that I couldn't shake, and my knitting mojo was like at an all-time low, and as a creative person who constantly needs to work with their hands and make things, I was feeling very frustrated. A lovely viewer, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting who it was, but they pointed me in the direction of the Battenberg blanket. I believe there were two patterns. So there was the Battenberg blanket by Sandra, and then there was the Casa Pinka pattern called the Blanket of Calm. Two very, very similar patterns, both free. I mean, at that point it was like pick your poison, but I believe Sandra was the first to publish a pattern like this. So and it was called the Battenberg blanket after a Battenberg cake because yeah, it looks like a Battenberg cake. And while I am not a sweets person, I do love the look of a Battenberg cake. It's so pretty. So anyway, I couldn't resist going with this version. And again, I don't think there's very much difference between either two. Anyway, I digress. So, once I saw the Battenberg blanket pattern, I immediately thought of some yarn from my stash that I had. It was this yarn. It's from Bergère de France, Gumi 50 in the beige colorway, or Imprim beige. So here's the skein. And you can see why I might have thought that it reminded me of Battenberg cake. So it's got, like beige, peaches, brown speckles, and anyway, my mind went immediately to this skein. And I had already knit a pair of socks out of this yarn, but I loved the yarn so much that I was like, it's a shame. It's a shame that it's a sock going in a boot and no one's gonna be able to see it or appreciate it. It was a done deal. I hopped online, ordered a blanket's worth of this yarn, in addition to some cream color. And I know Bergère de France Gumi 50, they make a cream version, but wherever I was looking, they were all sold out. So I settled for a similar yarn. It's by Regia. It's 4-ply, or 4-fadig. I'm getting my German. It's not great, but it's getting better. But like the Gumi 50, this is 75% virgin wool and 25% polyamide. So very similar bases, very similar weights. It was kind of like a match made in heaven. So that is the yarn that I chose for this project. And, it kept me happy for quite some time. A couple of months, I was just, one square, churning out the squares, one square after the other. And I have to say, I cast this on before I fell down the crochet rabbit hole hard last year. But at the time, I did have some basic crochet knowledge under my belt. I did know the basic stitches. So this is not rocket science. Anyone who knows basic crochet can figure this out. And it's incredibly easy, incredibly relaxing, very meditative. It's exactly what my soul needed at the time. And yeah, it just kind of lifted me out of that little slump that I was in. So I'll stand back so you can see. Yeah, it's kind of a jumbled mess right now, but we're getting somewhere. And at the time, because I didn't have all the, you know, the experience of crochet that I have now, because I had, you know, last year I did a complete deep dive. I learned everything I could about crochet. And looking back, I'm just like, what was I thinking? There's so many ends to weave in. I don't know why I didn't go ahead and weave in the ends as I go, because yeah, I just find myself finding little pockets of time these days, just weaving in all these ends that I failed to do at the time. So anyway, and then also finishing my squares. They could have been a little bit neater. Anyway, I kind of chuckle at myself now, but fast forward to today, end of December, once again, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Not as bad as I did during the pandemic. That was dark, but you know, just the overwhelm of not knowing what to work on, feeling overwhelmed by all of my projects, yet at the same time wanting to work with my hands and not something so complicated. This came back on my radar. I was actually scrolling through, well, first, no, Nora of the Nora Ling YouTube channel. Hi, Nora. She was working on hers, and then I was scrolling through our Facebook group. If you don't know, we have a private Facebook group for members of this channel. I'll talk more about that later. And one of, Rena, hello Rena, she cast on a Battenberg blanket as well. And when I saw her squares, I was just like, you know what, let's pull out the good old Battenberg blanket and put some squares in it, put a dent in it. And that is what I have been doing these past few weeks. Not been able to put it down. So, you know, you might not be able to tell, but this has grown significantly since I, you know, let it languish. And I'm so happy I picked it up again, because it is making me happy. It is so relaxing. I took it away with me on vacation, worked on it on the plane, worked on it on the beach, worked on it on the way home. Basically, I've been crocheting a batch of squares and just adding them to the blanket as I go. Sandra has a really great technique for joining the squares to the blanket. Let me see, where's the blanket again so I can show you up close. It's really simple. Basically, you just do a simple crochet stitch on the back. I'm not going to do a great job of explaining it right now, but trust me when I say that it's a really simple, easy, and effective, clean-looking technique. So yeah, you can see that. Yeah, so I'm really, guys, blankets. Blankets are where they're at right now. I don't know. I love making blankets. Can never have too many, am I right? So yeah, that is the Battenberg blanket. And again, I'm gonna go through all of my projects this month and see what's what and figure out when I'm gonna finish and when I'm not. I know I'm so close to finishing my Fruit Tingles shawl, the pattern that I cast on several months ago by Ambah O'Brien using my hand-dyed yarn. So close. I don't know why I stalled on that project, but again, very, very close. I just have to knit a couple more rows of garter stitch and then the lace border and we are done. So there's no reason. There's no reason why that's not done. Let's talk about what I'm wearing. I completely glazed over that. This is the No Frills pullover by PetiteKnit. Everyone and their monkey's uncle has made one. And if you haven't already, you probably, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but it's a great pattern. If you need a nice basic raglan, look no further. This was actually last year's Christmas Eve cast on. So I cast this on December 25th of 2022. So yeah, this is knit out of my own hand-dyed yarn, Voolenvine yarns, in my Wolke base, which is cloud in German, held together with my Ghost lace base, which is a lace weight silk mohair blend in the Gashly Crumb colorway, which again is inspired by my favorite illustrator, Edward Gorey, because he's awesome and I would decorate my entire house in Edward Gorey prints. But anyway, I digress. I will stand up so you can see. And yeah, this gets so much wear, guys. I mean, it's got a nice little crop to it. I mean, in hindsight, maybe I would have knit this a little bit longer, but you know, I love it. I still wear a lot of it. Yeah, and then for the sleeves, again, as always, when it comes to sleeves and sweaters, I don't decrease. I just pick up the stitches around the armhole and knit straight and then do a rapid decrease around and then knit the cuff. So you get like kind of this little bubble bubble effect, mushroom effect. So yeah, that is what I'm wearing. Next up, I do have a knitting project that I want to share the progress of it with you. Let me go see, where is that? What did I do with it? Next up is a project that I have been making progress on. And this is, I showed you some progress on it last week. This is the home cardigan by Caidree. I believe that's how you pronounce the designer's name, but wow, what a great pattern, guys. And I'm loving the yarn. So it's just a simple cardigan, a very, very simple stockinette cardigan, nothing fancy. It's got really lovely drop shoulder, drop sleeves, I want to say. And I'm knitting this using yarn that I purchased from Michael's craft store. It is Caron yarn, and I'm actually holding 2 strands of Caron yarn together. So here are the 2 skeins of yarn. This one over here is Caron Crystal Cakes because it has stellina in it. I believe this is the Starry Night colorway. And then this one right here, which is Graphite. This is Caron Cloud Cakes. It's almost like a very soft chenille. And as I say every time I talk about this yarn, super soft. For acrylic yarn, this is so incredibly soft, and I'm pleasantly surprised. So yes, let me see. So here's where we are. I finished knitting the body. Because the crystal cake is a gradient, it starts to stripe more where you're knitting shorter rows, if that makes, or I'm sorry, no, longer rows, if that makes any sense. So, for the cast on areas, you're knitting a lot, shorter distances, so the gradient is a lot wider. So when you join the sleeves and start knitting shorter, rows back and forth, you're getting more narrow stripes down here, and I'm loving it, guys. I'm so loving it. I mean, this is a cardigan that I'm gonna just chuck on while I'm around the house. I mean, screw it, why wouldn't I wear this out to dinner? It is glitzy, it is fun, and I love the scrappy aspect of it. It is so nice. And this color, oh my gosh, guys, I can't even. I love it. There's actually a hint of mauve in here. I am currently at the point where I am picking up the stitches around the armhole and knitting the sleeve. And I have to be honest, I did kind of let this fall to the wayside for a little bit because I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I wanna continue knitting in the round because the way in which I picked up the stitches, it's a little janky, a little sloppy, because there aren't any really definitive stitches for me to go into, pick up and knit. You just kind of have to eyeball it a little bit because you're picking up and knitting 2 stitches, skipping one, picking up and knitting 2 stitches. It's very eyeballish, if that makes any sense. Is that even a word? No, it's not, Kristen. But anyway, I might just rip this out and do it over again, especially with a shorter circular needle because I'm using magic loop here, but the cable isn't long enough. So yeah, I think that's part of the problem. So anyway, yeah, so I will be returning to this very, very soon, but just wanted to give you guys a little update on that. And yeah, and again, I'm happy to report that I will have enough yarn left over to knit a pullover after that. So yay, very, very excited. Moving along to quilting because there's a lot of quilt talk today, my friends. I hope you're up for it. Last episode, I shared a work in progress, the Confetti Quilt. That quilt top has been finished, and here we are. Here she is, all folded up. And again, as with anytime I try to show you a finished quilt top on the episode, on the channel, it never fits the whole screen, so I have to actually try and shoot or take a photo from high above. I'll see if I get around to taking a photo of it from above before I publish this episode, but no promises. So here we go. Here's the border for one. The fabric that I used is called Midnight in the Garden. I believe it's by Moda Fabrics. I'll pop all the information in the down bar. But here we go. And guys, how beautiful is this? I mean, not to toot my own horn, but this pattern, guys. First of all, it kind of reminds me of granny squares. I don't know, is it just me? But they're so fun, so fun. Yeah, look at that. So this is a fairly large quilt. I forget how big it measures. It's not a perfect square. Is it a perfect square? Again, I forget my own quilt tops, guys. I have to lay this out and see if this is a perfect square. I don't think it is. I think it's I think it's a subtle rectangle. Can you be a subtle rectangle? No, if you're a rectangle, you're a rectangle. There's no subtlety about being a rectangle. Oh goodness. Anyway, oh gosh. Okay, so yeah, you get the idea. It is, yeah, I'm so happy with the way that this turned out. I almost lost to fabric chicken because I ended up not having enough fabric for the border. Did the pattern call for a border? Yes, it did call for a border, and I really wanted to use this fabric as the border. And truth be told, I believe this fabric from this whole collection is really hard to come by lately. I managed to track down 3 yards of it on Etsy. Just like everywhere else, it was all sold out. I could only get like either a half yard or 1 yard, and I really just needed enough yardage for the border. So I ended up with more than enough yardage for the border. So now I have some left over that I can incorporate into, I don't know, like a project bag or something, or another scrappy quilt. It's so pretty, guys. Yeah, and it was incredibly simple. I mean, these squares look somewhat involved, but as I mentioned in the last episode, I'm not sitting here stitching all of these squares individually together. It's a really clever construction where you just sew strips of fabric together and then you slice them vertically and then rotate them together and sew them back together. So it's kind of like you're killing more birds with one stone, if that makes any sense. So anyway, yeah, really easy, simple, clever construction. Popped on an audiobook. I was happy as a clam, and this came together in no time. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to get around to quilting this immediately. I'm going to add this to my pile of quilts to quilt for a rainy day. As I learn more about quilting, I'm learning that having a stack of quilt tops, you know, just kind of hanging out for when you need them is the norm. It's okay. I mean, you know, there's a threshold that you reach where you're like, okay, I think we've got to do something with these quilt tops, but I'm not there yet. I'm not there. So anyway, I'll fold this up more neatly later. But anyway, moving along. After I finished my confetti quilt top, I decided to make another quilt, another big quilt, from a book that I purchased from Joann Fabric. I purchased this book on sale from Joann Fabric, and I could not resist. And I definitely shared this book with channel members at length, but I'm not sure if I shared it with everyone else. Anyway, we're going to talk about it now. This is Fassett's Quilts in Ireland. And again, I picked this up at Joann Fabrics. It was on sale. Let me see. Yeah, it was on clearance. I got it for like $13.97 US, and it was originally $27.95 US with an extra 40% off. I mean, yeah, and look how beautiful this book is, guys. And you might be thinking, Kristen, K. Fassett, really? That's so not your aesthetic. But again, I've just been deep diving into the world of quilts and quilting and learning about different designers, and I've actually watched and listened to a couple of interviews with K. Fassett, and I'm really fascinated with his, you know, how he plays with color, works with color, chooses color, and dare I say, I'm warming up to it. And when I stumbled on this book, I was very, very taken with it. Just, you know, the photography and the actual quilts themselves. I mean, look at this. Just really, really beautiful photography in here. And the colors, very, very wacky, very out of my comfort zone. I mean, K. Fassett, let's face it, he's basically the Stephen West of the quilting world. Can't deny that. And yeah, that quilt, not so much. Again, you know, there are some quilts that I'm just like, yeah, I can see making one of those, and then others that I'm just like, I don't know. But anyway, the quilt that I was immediately taken with from this book is called Shadow Play. So when I saw that, I was just like, yeah, I totally want to make it. And it has, you know, a lot of half square triangles, which may be your forte or not your forte if you are a quilter. I'm indifferent to them. I don't hate them. I don't necessarily love them, especially when I have to make a million of them. But you know, looking at this, I think, you know, it could be a lot of fun, especially when you're working with a lot of color. So anyway, I think what drew me to it is just the very muted tones in the sashing and the border, and then on the inside. It's a very light kind of lime green, I want to say. And then the half square triangles themselves are just like a combination of light and dark pinks, peaches, browns. I noticed, you know, because I did purchase some fabric for it to make it. I'm not going I was kind of going for a replica of this, but I'm open to interpretation, if you will. And I noticed that some red and orange did work their way into the fabric that I purchased. And if lately, somehow, I don't know why, but red and orange has been whittling its way into my work. And it's a color combination that I do not love. I do not love it, but somehow it ends up in my stash. I don't know how, but I got to work on that. I got to, because I don't like it. I really don't like it. So, you know, I am kind of maybe looking to replace that fabric with some other combinations. So yeah, anyway, this is the pattern that I'm planning to make. I've already started cutting out the pieces. Very, very exciting. Again, you know, I'm experimenting, I'm playing, I'm learning, and you know, I want to try my hand at a Fassett quilt and working with Fassett fabric because I hear good things and I want in on the fun, essentially. Kind of like my Tula pink infatuation. So anyway, I will talk more about that quilt in a later episode, and but in the meantime, between projects, I kind of needed a palette cleanser, something instantly gratifying that I could churn out in a few days or so. And you might recall that I did make a quilt, more like it was a table runner by Missouri Star Quilt Company. It was called Connected Stars, and I'll pop a photo of it here. What a great pattern. I mean, talk about instant gratification. I whipped this up in a few days, if you will. You know, I will say it's a very involved pattern. You know, you're cutting out little tiny shapes, triangles. It is a little fiddly to construct, but if you have a good audiobook, a podcast, you're set, you're gold. Anyway, all that to say, it was so nice. I made it twice. So here we go. I made another Connected Stars quilt, part 2. And this time I used it using fabric called Date Night by Moda Fabrics. And this was a charm pack that I picked up during our visit to Vermont. There was a quilt shop on the way home and we made a pit stop, and you know, nothing was really calling out to me, but this one, I spotted this charm pack and I was like, you know, yeah, a little souvenir pack of fabric, and picked it up, came home with me, and yeah, it was the perfect fabric for this project. And unlike the first one that I made, this color story is more in my wheelhouse. It's more my color palette. You know, if you know me, I like a lot of muted, neutral shades. The other one, I used a charm pack by Ruby Star Society. It was called Camilla, I believe. I'll leave links to all of these down below where you can find them. But that version, you know, while it's fun, it's a little too colorful for my liking. This one I like a lot more. And while this project is supposed to be a table runner, in hindsight, I probably should have used a less lofty batting because the batting that I used in this one is a lot fluffier, or has a lot more body to it compared to the last one that I made. And the batting that I use is actually a generic one that I found on Amazon. I'm blanking on the name, but I will link to it down below. And I figured since this is just a simple table runner, I would go with the least expensive batting I could find on Amazon. And you know, this one brand that I found, this batting is actually really lovely. You know, it was inexpensive, but it just has a really nice quality to it. Granted, I wouldn't have used it for a table runner because it's so lofty. This would be really lovely in a blanket or throw, but for a table runner, I don't know if you can see, I'll try and insert some photos, but it's pretty lumpy and bumpy, especially because I washed it. Yeah, this has already been thrown in the wash, in the tumble dryer, and you know when you do that, it definitely distorts the fabric a little. It gives it that crinkly, antique-y feeling, which some of you may enjoy and some of you may not. I personally love the old antique-y vibes happening when you wash a quilt. And that said, I think, you know, when it comes to people of the camp of pre-washing your quilt fabric versus not pre-washing, if you want to avoid the super crinkling like in here, you may, it may behoove you to pre-wash. I don't know, I've never tried it myself, but if you are an avid quilter and pre-wash your fabric, let us know in the comments down below. Do you pre-wash your fabric and why? Because I would like to know. I would really like to know the method behind your madness. Is there a benefit to pre-washing? You certainly wouldn't want to pre-wash pre-cuts because the smaller the pre-cut, the more you risk your edges fraying. So that's what I've heard. You might be safe pre-washing something like a fat quarter or especially yardage, but for smaller pre-cuts, I would err on not pre-washing. But anyway, yeah, the other thing that I want to talk about with this project is the quilting job that I did on it. So I will show you the back. I did this all on my Jaquie machine using my walking foot, and guys, I'm super proud of myself. And I learned to do that quilting pattern from this book called Walk. It's called Master Machine Quilting with Your Walking Foot by Jaquie Gering. And here we go. This is the book, and guys, this book is amazing. This book essentially shows you how to quilt your quilts with your walking foot, and it's pretty genius. I mean, just take a look at the back. It's pretty low contrast, but you can get an idea of like how much you can do with just your walking foot. She gives you a lot of information about how to get to know your walking foot, you know, basting and just preparing your quilts for quilting and marking. I mean, how cool is that? Look. Yeah. And the cool thing, even cooler thing, is that she gives you all these different kinds of designs that you can make. Where's the one that I used? Here it is. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. So this is called Star-Crossed, which I thought would be perfect for the Connected Stars quilt. So this is what it's supposed to look like. And she gives you all these diagrams over here, like little pinpoints of, you know how to mark up your quilt, and then you start with one zigzag line, and then you make another, and then you basically just, it's very, very simple. You just make a zigzag line, and then you rotate your fabric, and then crisscross, crisscross. This quilting job is all zigzags, just crisscrossed zigzags, and it creates this really cool pattern. I mean, it looks a lot busier now because I've washed it, and you're probably wondering, Kristen, why did you wash it before showing it to us? And the reason is because I had to mark up my quilt using a water-soluble marker. So when this quilt was all done, there were like blue markings everywhere, so I just popped it in the wash to get rid of those lines. I probably could have just spot cleaned it with water, but I don't know, I was curious. I was curious to see what would happen if I threw this in the wash. And I'm really happy with the way it looks. I mean, granted, would I use this as a table runner now? Because honestly, if you put like a glass or something on here, it's not a very flat surface. It's very lumpy and bumpy, and I'm afraid like a glass or something would tip over. So anyway, my cat Bella has been enjoying this quilt immensely. Guys, most of my quilts go to my cat, and that's okay. Honestly, I mean, again, this was supposed to be a palette cleanser project between quilts, and honestly, this was a great learning curve for me, you know, just revisiting a pattern, seeing how much I progressed as a quilter, and then also getting to try out this new to me technique using my walking foot. And guys, I'm sold on quilting with my walking foot. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love some free motion quilting, but I feel like the walking foot gives me a lot more control. And if you're not familiar with what a walking foot does, it's, you know, it's a clunky foot for your machine, but it helps feed the fabric evenly through your machines. But unlike free motion quilting, your feed dogs stay up, and the walking foot works in tandem with your feed dogs to evenly feed the fabric through the machine. So you don't end up with puckers, you have more control. It just gives you a lot more control as far as your stitching is concerned. So let me know, maybe I'll make a video about that. Let me know in the comments down below. Would you be interested in a walking foot video, tutorial, something? Let me know what you want to know, and I can see if I can make it happen. Okay, one more last thing before I move on to the next project. I did sign it. So here I signed it on the back using a fine point Sharpie marker, and yes, it survived the wash, so it's there, it's not going anywhere. I basically just signed my name and the date. I may add some more information, maybe the fabric that I used, or, you know, I don't know, some notes where it's made. Who knows? But anyway, yeah. Always sign your quilts, guys. And there are many ways to sign your quilts. You can use, you know, obviously the easy way was a Sharpie marker, but you can go all out and make a really nice embroidered custom label if you want. Anyway, it's a simple table runner, now cat blanket. It's fine. So anyway, all right, guys. Wow. Long episode, but I've got a lot to talk about. So moving along, last project that I'm going to talk about is for our epic make-along, which if you're not familiar is a year-long make-along where we are all endeavoring to make something epic. And honestly guys, there are no hard fast rules. It is pretty open to anything, whatever your craft is. If you're into knitting, crochet, sewing, weaving, quilting, shoemaking, I don't know, whatever your craft is, you're welcome to join. You have a year to do it. Choose something that is epic to you, something however big or however small. If it feels like a big deal to you, if you feel like you're going to come out the other side with a sense of accomplishment, that's the general idea. And this project that I'm working on is, I believe, no exception. This is the Tula Nova, an English paper piece project using all Tula pink fabrics. And oh my gosh, guys, this is insane. So insane. I can't even. So clearly I've made a lot of progress on it since I last showed it to you. I've just been going ham on it and enjoying every stitch. It's amazing. So yeah, here we go. This is what it looks like. I'll stand back so you can see. And again, it's all using all Tula pink fabric. I mean, look at these pandas. I cannot even, guys. Adorable pandas. And here we have some peacocks in the center, some fussy cut roses, and next up, I'm in for a treat because the next round is going to be a lot of stitching, but I'm going to have fun doing it. So living in my Tula Nova bionic gear bag, I have all of my tools. Let me see. And I'm starting to realize for this project in particular, this is way too small. I'm gonna need a bigger bionic gear bag, guys. I need a bionic duffel bag for this project. It's crazy. Next up, I am sewing these star motifs. I'm making a whole bunch of them. I think I have to make 10 or 20. I don't know. I lost count, but I've got to make a lot of them. So here's the stars that I've assembled so far, and here are all the triangles, all the little star arms that I have to sew onto these little hexagons. It's a labor of love. It is epic for sure, and I'm having so much fun. Did I mention that I'm having so much fun? I am. And again, as I'm going, here's what the back looks like. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I am pulling out the paper bits as I go. I actually have an English paper piecing tutorial. I'll link to it in the doobly-doo up here and in the description box down below, along with everything else that I mentioned in this episode. That's where you can find it. So yes, yeah, so that is where I am with my Tula Nova. Again, another project where I'm working with fabrics that are so far out of my comfort zone, but yet they are bringing me so much joy. Again, this is kind of like a pick your poison, choose your own adventure as you go. I don't really have a set plan for the colors that I'm using or the types of fabric that I'm using as I go. I'm kind of just going with the flow and yeah, really, really loving it. So yeah. And speaking of our epic make-along, if you would like to join, do be sure to tag your projects with hashtag Voolenvine Epic MAL so we can all follow along and find each other. Yes, and also speaking of our private Facebook group, again, as I mentioned, the private Facebook group is for members of this YouTube channel only. So if you would like to join the Facebook group, you need to become a member of this channel. And to do that, you can click the join button below this video or on the main page of this YouTube channel. And for the price of a monthly fancy schmancy cup of coffee, you can get an invite to that group. It's a wonderful place to be, especially, you know, if you want to see what other people are working on, share what you're working on. Because again, the comments, it's more like a one-way street. I can't see, you know, I can show you what I'm working on, but I can't see what you're working on. And the Facebook group is just a really, really lovely place for us to, you know, share those things. And the Facebook group is a great place for us to do that, you know, to see what we're all working on and connect. And it's just a really fun place to be. And it's also a really safe place for me to host giveaways for make-alongs like this, because as I'm sure you're familiar with, you know, giveaways in the past, whenever I host them here on the channel, it just invites scammers and trolls, and I don't want that. So the safest way for me to host a giveaway is through the Facebook group. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a really wonderful place for members of this channel to connect. And, you know, yeah, I get to see you guys and know you guys, and it's just really, really great. So if you're interested in that, click the join button down below, and no matter what tier you choose to join, you can get an invite to the Facebook group, and if you join the a cup of something and higher tier, you will also get a bonus vlog for me every week. It's very, very casual. Sometimes I sprinkle in more than one, but you know, very, very casual vlogs sharing with you what I get up to over the weekends and during the week, life-wise, craft-wise. I share projects that I don't share on the main channel, so it's a lot of fun. Very, very silly, laid back, but there you have it. So if you do become a member, thank you so much, and many, many thanks and kisses to my existing members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you've made it this far and you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below. I'm putting out videos for your viewing pleasure every other week. And Happy New Year, happy making, and I will see you soon. Bye.